The United States and the European Union are acting so surprised that the Syrian regime has allowed killing of innocent civilians in Syria, even though the people who run Syria now, after the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad, are known al-Qaeda terrorists. The State Department has long since known that. We are not surprised, and neither is Kevork Almassian, our next guest. He is an Armenian Orthodox Christian who was born in Syria, award-winning journalist who has been warning about this on Redacted for more than 3 years. He joins us to discuss this violence that was easily foreseeable. Kevork, thank you for joining us. And can you explain the scope of what's happening and whether or not it's nascent? Maybe it's nascent to the news, but not us.
The number of the casualties in Syria is with thousands. And today, a European MEP, member of European Parliament, who was in Syria, he's from Greece, he estimates the death toll by 7,000 innocent civilians between Christians and Alawites in the coastal cities of Syria. Basically, what happened is al-Julani, who is now self-elected or self-selected president of Syria, he sent his gangs, al-Qaeda gangs, to Latakia in order to suppress the Alawite civilians there, under the claim that those are regime remnants. The videos that we receive and the footage we receive from Syria are overwhelmingly of civilians. Kids, children, even newborn babies and women and men, they have been executed in daylight in the streets, and all documented on video, because the goal is not only to kill, but is also pleasure. They're having pleasure by killing all these ordinary people. And we have warned about this for a long time, because we have cases in the past that we can build on and see on which side received all these weapons. Basically, they are al-Qaeda affiliates. The leader of this group is the founder of the al-Qaeda offshoot in Syria. He was the partner of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. He used to send car bombs in Iraq, in Shia neighborhoods, in order to kill civilians. Therefore, we have a track record that we can build on. However, Jake Sullivan in 2012, he said al-Qaeda is on our side in Syria in his email to Hillary Clinton. Later, we have Hillary Clinton herself admitting that civil war, sectarian civil war in Syria is not necessarily a bad thing, because then this could benefit Israel in the region. Because
yes,
this
I have
will
an
lead
image
into...
of that. We learned this from WikiLeaks. I'd like to bring that up while you're talking. Please continue.
Yeah, and in this case, Hillary Clinton knew that this type of warfare that they have waged against Syria by giving all these weapons to the radical elements in the Syrian society and importing all these multinational Takfiri jihadi groups into Syria, this will lead eventually into mass murder of the religious and ethnic minorities, because the Takfiris do not see the Christians and the Alawites and the other ethnic and religious minorities as human beings. In their minds, once you open your eyes and you were born a Christian, they can kill you. This is in their ideology. Therefore, giving them weapons and then acting surprised and shocked that something like this happened. Imagine the audacity of the European Union, that they not only act shocked, but they blame the victims. They said this killing in Syria happened due to the Assad regime remnants. And not, like, all these civilians who were killed.
That's what they're calling them. They're saying that they're actively protesting on behalf of Bashar al-Assad. That doesn't look like the case to me. It looks like they're actively trying to live their lives. Can you explain that nuance, please?
Natalie, when Saddam Hussein was overthrown, this was a terminology used by the United States in order to follow the resistance in Iraq and kill them by saying those are Saddamists or those are the Saddam regime remnants. And now they copy this experience in Syria, and this is being repeated also by Arabic press, that those are the supporters of Assad. But the truth of the matter is, if Assad returns tomorrow to Syria, I assure you, the so-called Assad loyalists and Assad regime remnants, they're the ones who are going to kill him, because he abandoned them and he fled to Moscow. So in their eyes of this resistance who is fighting against al-Julani's gangs, Assad is a traitor. This is how they see it. But in the press, because they want to normalize the killing and bring legitimacy to the Julani regime, they are trying to tell us that Assad in Moscow is waging an insurgency against the elements of these Julani gangs. No, Julani kicked out the Alawites and the Christians from their jobs. Their people are poor and their people cannot even secure bread. So the people reach to the edge because they have lost their jobs. There is no any government support for them, and they are being persecuted now by these gangs. So of course, those who used to be in the Syrian army in the past, they will try to defend their families. But if you watch the footage, have you seen one militant from the former Syrian army soldiers in this footage? They're killing civilians. They're going from one door to another, taking people out, first torturing them, humiliating them, and then killing them under the sunlight. This is very horrendous. And I just want to say one thing. If Tulsi Gabbard by any chance is watching, she knew about it and she told the truth about Syria. Yes. That's why they demonized her. That's why they called her, she's the Assad darling or something. She knew who are these groups.
Which was what Barry Weiss called her, an Assad toady, a monstrous Assad toady. Yet Barry Weiss has said nothing, or any of these, so-called I don't know what we're going to call them. We're not going to give them a label. Have said nothing about the killing of these innocent civilians. I want to ask you a little bit about how it must feel to see the State Department condemning this right now under Marco Rubio again, when people inside the Trump cabinet have predicted this.
I'm not surprised that Marco Rubio condemned it, because we have to read between the lines of this statement. He mentioned 4 minorities and said the United States stands by them. He mentioned the Druze, he mentioned the Alawites, he mentioned the Christians, and he mentioned the Kurds. And those are the 4 ethnicities and religions that they want to create mini states for them in Syria. Therefore, the creation of a sectarian civil war in Syria, where Julani has an exclusive right for all these weapons, and he has the most weapons, he will wage these atrocities against the minorities. They knew he will do it. That's why they wanted him to come to power. So when he persecutes the Christians, the Alawites, the Kurds, and the Druze, then Israel and the United States can present themselves as the savior of these minorities. Now, Israel says that they will protect the Druze. The US says that they will protect the Kurds, and the Christians and the Alawites in the coast, they will be under the protection of the Russians and probably also Greece. So what they're trying to do is they are preparing the way for the Balkanization of Syria, the separation of Syria as a nation state into mini-states. And inside Syria, there is no military or political power which can resist this project. Therefore, it is highly likely that the US, Israel, and other powers, including Russia, by the way, may be cooperating in order to divide Syria into different mini-states. Some people have probably goodwill to save the minorities, but for me, as a Syrian, I'm an ethnic Armenian, but I was born and raised in Syria. I believe in the Syrian nationhood. I believe in the Syrian identity. And now it's all destroyed. So we don't have a nationhood any longer.
Well, the president of Syria saying he will launch an investigation into this matter. What do we make of... Okay, you're laughing. So that's the answer. What do you make of this?
It's like Israel says that they have formed an independent investigation to see about the tragic events that happened in Gaza. Have we received the results of these investigations after 1.5 years after atrocities? None, because people will forget about them.
Netanyahu says that calling for an investigation makes you a deep state actor.
Of course, and anti-Semite as well. So we have to be careful with our words when we speak about Benjamin Netanyahu. In this case, they know that when they form a committee, and it will take time for them to investigate, people will forget about it. New events will happen. It will erase the past atrocities. Those are all smokescreen. Imagine the head of Al-Qaeda appointed members in this committee, one of which he has a public statement on Facebook. He is not criticizing the minorities, he's condemning the minorities few years ago, saying that they're waging war against the majority Muslim population. So in his rotten and very backward mind, he thought that the past year wars, which was a CIA engineered regime change war, was basically a war between minorities and the majority of Muslims. Therefore, the Muslims have to rule over them, which is this mindset that they want to establish a majority dictatorship over the minorities. This has nothing to do with democracy, but rather establishing a theocratic authoritarian regime headed by al-Julani. Probably he will have control over Damascus, Aleppo, Homs, Idlib, but he already lost control on the rest of the country. No other sane people, civilized people, will accept to live under al-Julani's rule in Syria.
Now, in 2015, President Trump said, look, Assad may be protecting people there. We don't know who would be coming in. They could be worse. But we did know, because the Obama administration is the one that sold us this idea of arming moderates. Al-Nusra is an arm of al-Qaeda. So Americans should feel incredibly pissed off, I do, that we were fighting al-Qaeda in Afghanistan and arming them in Syria, and then pretend that we didn't think that this would happen. So can you please remind us what the tenets are of al-Nusra as an extension of al-Qaeda? I'll get you out of here on this.
Actually, just interestingly, that Abu Muhammad al-Julani ended up in an American prison, CIA-led prison in Iraq in 2003 or 5, alongside Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, and then they released him only the same year when the war started in Syria, and then sent them both to Syria, one of which created ISIS and the other one created Nusra. In 2012, Obama knew when he put his signature on Operation Timber Sycamore, which is a covert CIA operation in Syria for the regime change, he knew that they are arming radical Islamist elements in Syria. The Defense Intelligence Agency has given him the report telling him that the driving force behind the insurgency in Syria are the Al-Qaeda and Muslim Brotherhood jihadists. And he knowingly put his signature on the operation, hence giving $1 billion per year, weapons and ammunition and training to these jihadists in Syria. And this is only the CIA program. Then we have in parallel the Pentagon also trained separately $500 million worth of program all these jihadists in Syria. And then we have the regional countries. Qatar spent tens of billions of dollars in arming them. Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Israel, which now pretends to come as a savior for the minorities. When the former head of Mossad was asked on Al Jazeera, why did you guys receive the Al-Qaeda elements in your hospitals and given them the treatment? He said it's a tactical move from Israel that they're dealing with these Al-Qaeda elements. And then the Israeli press themselves confessed that Israel given them light weapons, they have given them cash. USAID, how much money USAID has given to these people? Billions of dollars in 10% of the Syrian territory. All this money went into one place, which is the one small governorate where this al-Julani used to control. Millions of them went to these jihadists through corrupted NGOs claiming to be humanitarian, receiving the money and then paying the salaries of the officers and the commanders of these Al-Qaeda groups. It's a complete sham. It's a complete lie, Natalie, that they have sold to the American people. Now we lost our country and the world has become a more dangerous place, because if this example is copied in the Middle East, what kind of message they are sending to the rest of the Arab people and the Muslim people in the Arab world? That in order for you to come to power, you have to become one of these Al-Qaeda elements and remove your previous regimes, and for you to conquer and become to power, and then they will normalize it. You know, this is very dangerous precedent. What's happening in Syria?
Definitely. Well, you've been warning about this. We always appreciate your voice on this matter. You can follow Kevork at Kevork Almassian on X, as well as he's the host of Syriana Analysis, same tag. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you talking to us as this news story comes to a head.
Thank you very much, Natalie, for the opportunity.